It's the weekend and you're bored sitting in front of the computer. You're itching to write a small app, but you don't want to waste a whole day on it. Well, you have come to the right place. Here are 9 small projects to fight boredom. What's more, you can follow the link below this video and get straight to the code where you can continue to play with it or copy it over to show off your skills on your own webpage. Welcome to episode 8 in the JavaScript Bushido series. Number 1. Number 1 of course has to be Hello World. Now this Hello World is a little bit different because I want to go and color and have the text jump out a little bit. But besides of that, writing your first Hello World is a must do for every programmer. Especially if you're bored, this is what you can do in a short period of time. So let me create this here. Okay. And this is our basic empty form, and the first thing that we're going to add in is actually the div. So let me add in the div here, and we want to add it slightly below the top, and then we want to center it and give it an ID. There is currently no text in there, but that's going to come now. So let me go ahead and let's just create a script tag. And let's close that script tag as well, and we're going to get the div equals document.get ID, and we've called this here out, so let's get this document. And in order to set the text through JavaScript HTML, we can simply set this attribute here, and we call this world. So save this and push start, and Hello World is there. So now let's go and color this in a little bit. So, and in order to color this, we write a small helper function here, and that function does randomly get some colors, RGB, the red, green and blue parts of the color. It randomizes it. Math.random gives you values between 0 and 1, and then it multiplies it by 255, and since we're only interested in the integer part, we just parse int and get it back. The way that we color it actually is to create a font tag, pass the color in, and return the whole thing back. Now how do we actually use this now is through a timer. And the timer function is going to look something like this, where we set the timer, set the interval, create this function, and this function is called every 500 milliseconds. Then we create the text, Hello World in this case. We go iterate over every single character of this text, and we get the random color from this function back. Add it to the inner HTML, make sure it's a little bit larger so we can see it, and start it up. Let's see what happens if we save it. Here we go, and as you can see, the colors are changing already, but that's not all. Let's go ahead and add another function here, and this function, what it does, it randomly changes the type of the font that it's being used, so it makes it bold, italic, superscript or subscript. And then it returns this. And in order to do to utilize this, what we're going to do is actually here equals, and then we say HTML plus equals random type, and we pass in the color. Save this up and start it up. HTML and see what happens. So here we see we have a crazy Hello World that if you add this to your webpage will surely annoy your visitors. Number two, we're going to create a random password generator, and for this we create another new board2.html file because we're still sort of kind of bored, and we add in these functions again. So we have our div element again, and we get the div element in our JavaScript tag and set the inner HTML to Hello World. Now the next thing that we need to do, because we know exactly what's going to happen here, is we actually have to create the random string generator functions. And this is a nice function I found online where you simply pass in the length and define the functions. So let's call this here, set the inner HTML to random string, and let's get a string of 20. And let's take a quick peek at this function, how it works. So you pass in the length, the text starts out with no characters, you give a possible selection of these letters, and then to iterate until from 0 to the length that you want to have, and you get a random number, you multiply it by the length, by this length here, and then you get the lower bound because you only want to have the integer part, and you get the character at that lower bound, basically at the integer part of this string, and you add it to the text, and that's what you return. So let's save this and start it up, and there you go. You have your very own passwords, random password generator that you can use to secure all your bitcoins or web pages or whatever you feel. Number three, we're going to create a Santa flying over your web page, something for the season and something that actually goes quite nice if you do it in moderation. So let's call this board 3 HTML and create this here. And before we continue with the code, let me first upload 2 resources here. And let's see, once this is done, we close this and we can see the animation looks like this. And with that in place, we can create the BG color. We set this to black and add in the code here. And it's very similar to the previous samples where we create 2 tags. This one is an image tag for Santa sleigh, and then an audio tag where we play the bells. We set it to autoplay and loop, and for Santa sleigh we set the position to absolute. In the script tag we then go ahead and we get the image by get element by ID, and we need this because we want to animate Santa to ride over the web page from the left to the right. And the way to animate this here is, again, we set interval, implement the function, the lambda function, and we call this function every 100 milliseconds. And every 100 milliseconds we increase it by 3 pixels, add it to the style, and then if Santa has gone all the way to the right side over the width of the actual window, we reset the width size, we reset the left position to -400, save it, and let's start it up, and let's see how it looks. There you go. Now you can add this to your web page, and you have Santa in the winter time going over your web page. Number 4. In this boredom goes haywire code sample, we implement an advanced online calculator for your web page, just in case you need to calculate your mortgage rate or need to validate that 1 + 1 truly equals 2. So let's create the plain HTML page, and then what we're going to do is we add in a form and a output field here. So, and in this field we have 2 inputs. One is a text field where we give a default value, and this default value actually, or this default text, is to calculate your mortgage rate. And then the second one is a button, and on click we want to call a calc function, which we have to implement. So let's do this up here. And the calc function will simply go ahead and it will get the input and output field, and then calculate based on the input, evaluates the input, and put the response out to the output. So we store this now, save and start it up. Then we're going to have this form. This is your formula. We calculate, and here we go, $100,000 at 5%. Over 30 years, your monthly mortgage payment would be $790. Or, as I said before, 1 + 1. And what we calculate, the response would be 2. Number 5. For the next board sample, I want to create a clock, but not just any clock. I want to create a polar clock. Now, what is a polar clock? A polar clock displays the date and the time in a 360-degree full circle. And go board 5.html here, and then once we have created this, we need to include a JavaScript. So we say script source equals, and I know that it's clock.js, JS, and what I have to do here is I have to upload that particular file right there, close, and then what we have to do is close the script tag to be compliant, and then simply add in a canvas on which we draw the clock. So the important thing here for this canvas is actually to call the canvas, give it an ID of canvas, and the reason for that is, let's take a look at the clock.js JavaScript file. The first line after the window has loaded is to actually get that object by element by ID, and it has to be canvas, and from there on it's handled accordingly. Now let's close this, go back here, and one thing we want to do is color equals white, and save this up, and then we can start it up and see how it looks. So here we go, here's the frame, and it takes a little bit. Here's the clock. So the inner circle, those are the seconds, the innermost, followed by the minutes, and then by the hours. The next one is the day of the week. Today is Saturday, so the last day of the week, and then followed by the days of the month, and then by the month itself. So I'm in January, and today is January the 13th, so almost halfway through. Number 6. Did you ever want to have a random background image of a certain topic that looks good? Here we're going to create a image viewer which picks random images of a particular topic. So still board 6.html and save this. So the first thing that we're going to add in are 2 items, and those 2 items is a button that calls the function getImage and an input field where we can define the keyword that we're interested in. As you see, we do not have a item to store or to display the image, but that's okay. We're going to display it as the background. For this to look good, we need to create a style and close the style tag here. And what the style tag basically is doing, it resizes the image, the background image, makes sure that it does not repeat, and it centers it inside the image. Now next we are going to include the JavaScript files. In this case we're going to use the jQuery library right of the Google API's server, and we created a script, a JavaScript keyword variable that we're going to use in the code, and to use the function here, we're going to get the keyword from that key that we defined, the input field here, which has the ID key. So we get element by ID key, and then we create this request object. This request object gets a tags and it sets this keyword. And these 2 are standard pieces of information. The URL that we are getting the random image from is the Flickr API, and as you can see, we're going to request the JSON using the jQuery library. We pass in the URL, the request object, and this function here is then being called. And inside this function, we simply extract a random image that is being returned and displayed in the image body, in the body of this HTML page. So then let's save it, and let's see what happens when we look at the output. So here we're going to see some mountains, or let's search for cats. Yep, there we go, some cats, or we can look for dogs. And there we go. Number 7. Number 7 is not actually coding anything specific, but it is a web page which allows you to store your source code online and open it up so other people can use it or view it. And it's also a site where you can download other projects. So if you go here to explore, you have the option to take a look at trending projects, and I would highly recommend that you sign up if you don't already have an account over there and start playing with some of the code. So if you want to find a specific topic, you can simply use Google, and you can say, for example, games, and you want JavaScript games, and then you end it with GitHub. So that should bring up a list of projects here. Let's see, platform game, JavaScript game engine, or games on GitHub itself that you can use to play around with. And if you discover a bug, you can always clone this repository, fix the bug, and then ask for a pull request so that the original coder can incorporate those fixes into his game. Number 8. And as number 8, we're going to add a small chess game to our web page. So first let's create an empty HTML page here, which we call board8.html. And let's save this. Then we can get rid of this whole code here. And we're going to Google and search for JavaScript tiny chess game. So here there is one chess game that I've already seen here, and it actually works out of the box. Control U to see the source code, Control A to select all, Control C to copy. And let's paste this over here, Control S to save it, and let's take a look. And here we go. Here's our chess game that we can add to the web page, to our web page. And let's go. As you can see, it actually knows the moves and it works quite nice. There we go. I shouldn't have done it. And number 9, guys, that's it. My last tip for a project that you can do if you're bored at home and don't know what to do. So here we create another new project called board9.html, and this time we're going to create a 3D spinning globe. So let's select this, get rid of this, and then we're going to a website called OpenGlobus, openglobus.org. And as you can see, this looks a little bit like Google Maps here. I want to go to the samples and the base layer. So this is what we want to add to our web page. It's quite nice and it's quite responsive. So again, Control U, Control A, Control C to see the source code, select all and copy it, and save this document. But if I start this up now, as you can see, there's not a lot you can see, and that is because I'm serving this off a HTTP website and the source code here is served from a non-secured website, which does not work. So the browser gives me some headache here. So let me get rid of these two, and then go to get the raw files from GitHub. So the CSS and the JavaScript are both available on GitHub. Actually, the whole project is available on GitHub. So if I save this now and we take a look, and there you go. Here's your 3D spinning globe, and you have even a possibility to select different maps. I would definitely recommend that you go about and go back to this page and check out some of the other samples that you have here, or investigate how you can integrate, for example, this Google Maps type feature into your web page without using actual Google Maps. So there you have it, 9 things you can code when you are bored. If you liked this video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, or visit my blog to find more information about JavaScript coding in general. Also, Please let me know if you're interested in a certain topic which I can pick up in one of my future episodes. And I hope to see you back here next week.